Hi everyone, I want to welcome you this evening to Living with Change, Middle Stage Seeds of Hope. If at any point during our presentation this evening you're having technical problems, you can type in the lower right-hand box right near the word send and send that in, and my colleague Ashley will be able to assist you with any of the technical issues. For anybody on the phone, obviously you cannot type those in. So if you are having problems, thanks Kendra for letting me know. Apparently my words are breaking up, so I will try to raise my voice to see if this helps that problem. And just let me know as we go through if that is still an ongoing issue. So we're going to begin this evening with the Living with Change. What I want to do is ask everybody from where they're from approximately. So I know some of you may not be sitting in the cities that I have posted, but what would be your most natural Alzheimer's Society office to pick from? So I will put up some choices for you to pick, and you can pick out of those 6 choices. So number 1 is Grand Prairie, so you would check A. Number 2 is Edmonton and Fort McMurray. B. C is Red Deer. 4 is Calgary. 5 is Lethbridge. 6 is Medicine Hat. So just A for Grand Prairie, B for Edmonton, C for Red Deer, D for Calgary, E for Lethbridge, and F for Medicine Hat. And I'll give a little bit more time. And you can see the results there. So thank you so much for doing that. That helps us make sure we understand where everybody's coming from and making sure we're covering all of the appropriate points. So our family learning series, there are 4 different modules, and this evening, or this here session is called Middle Stage. And we do have an early stage called Living with Dementia, a late stage, transition to alternative care, and the end of life stage, which is called Dying with Dignity. We will be looking possibly at hosting more on our Assant Cafe. This is really just a pilot for us running the middle stage. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. The learning outcomes of this evening is to understand the philosophy of person-centered care, to be familiar with some of the common issues and changes faced by individuals in the middle stages of dementia and how this feels to them, to identify your strengths and areas for development as a care partner, to know what in-home support services and alternative living arrangements are available and how you would access them, to identify support networks available, including professional services and informal support from family and friends, and lastly, understand how family dynamics influence supports received from other family members. So that's what we hope to cover this evening. So we'll start with talking about what the actual program will look like. Our Living with Change Middle Stage is a 5-session program. So the first one this evening, we will talk about that Living with Change. In our second week, we'll talk about responding to the behaviors that challenge us, or as we refer to it, those expressions of feelings. We will skip 1 week. That's due to a speaking, one of our professional speakers was unable to make it. And then we'll start again with 3 in a row. We'll do communication with one of the speech language pathologists, activities of daily living with an occupational therapist, and managing stress. We have a different occupational therapist who will walk us through that. So that's what the program will look like over the next 5, or I should say over the next 6 Mondays, knowing that we skip Monday, November the 16th. A quick note, you will hear me referring to care partners. One of the biggest reasons we do this and use this term is Christine Bryden is a lady from New Zealand, I believe she is from, And she wrote one of her books, and it was Who Will I Be When I Die? When she wrote the book, her name was Christine Bowden. She is since married, and so it's Christine Bryden. She was diagnosed very young, at the age of 46, I believe. And this is a quote from her book. "We want not to be smothered by your care, nor isolated by your denial, nor cast aside as a victim of your grief, but we want you to be a care partner, walking alongside of us to meet our increasing needs." The other reason we use the word care partner is also that, as you see when we start talking about support services, we want you to actively engage other people who will become a care partner with you so that you feel you do not need to go through this journey alone. I will be referring throughout this presentation about documents and some activities. We want you to know that you can go to this link and you will be able to download, print off all of those additional documents there. For those of you on the phone, if you are obviously unable to go in and print those off, if you give your local office a call, we will be able to print those off for you and make sure we can get them to you. So don't hesitate to call whichever is your closest Alzheimer's Society office, and we'll make sure we can get you all of those documents. So as I'm going through the presentation, I will note that there are other documents, and this is again where you will find those. So moving on, our Seeds of Hope program is based on person-centered care approach. I always like to clarify that the person-centered care approach is not a fad. It's actually just a philosophy of life. Dr. Thomas Kitwood developed this formula to help us understand what person-centered care is. I know when we do this program in-house, many people look at this and they're worried we're going to do some complicated math. I can guarantee you we will not be doing complicated math this evening with this funny-looking formula. Dr. Kitwood, what he stated is that D is the person living with dementia. So this is your family member. So with that, we know that the person living with dementia comes to us with their own personality, their own biography, their own physical health. Because we are talking about people who have a cognitive impairment, they come to us with a neurological impairment. And they also come to us with a different social, psychological, or social physical world as well. So anytime we are thinking about people with dementia, we really need to remember them as a whole person. So in order to meet the physical, social, emotional, and spiritual needs of someone with dementia, we must understand and remember that they come to us with all of these components. I'd also encourage family members to share this information with other people, whether it's family members who don't know the person living with dementia as well, if you have any assistants, neighbors, because the more somebody knows about somebody with dementia, the better they'll be able to interact and engage with them. So we're going to speak a little bit about the progression of Alzheimer's disease at middle stage. So I'm going to start with looking at the cognitive abilities. Again, this is one of those, you will have the slides and be able to print the slides off, but this document is from the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. It's part of our progression series called Middle Stages. So cognitive abilities, some of the areas we will see that people, when they move into the middle stage of dementia, their memory problems will become more pronounced than they were in the early stages. So they'll still remember their own name, but they may not be able to remember an address or a phone number. They will forget those recent events and some of their own history. They may have difficult identifying family and friends, but still recognizes the familiar face. So again, they may not be able to call someone by name, but they will recognize it. Cognitively, we'll see that confusion, so difficulty organizing thoughts or following logic. There will also be disorientation to time and place. When we move to moods and emotions, from there, we know that people with dementia who are living with dementia in the middle stage, we may see some mood shifts. Some of these shifts may look like someone who is becoming more anxious, someone who's a little bit more suspicious, sadness, depression, frustration, anger. Again, these are things that may happen, not that they will happen. In the middle stages, when we look at some of these behaviors that challenge us or expressions of feelings, we may look and see that someone with middle stage dementia is a little bit more apprehensive. They may withdraw more or be a little bit passive. You may find a little bit more restlessness. So this is where people may begin pacing or wandering. Those repetitive questioning or actions, that'll start to happen more in the middle stages. And delusions and hallucinations. Delusions are when someone has a fixed false belief, and a hallucination would be something, as an example, an auditory or visual hallucination. So something that is happening that no one else would see or hear if it was visual or auditory. There are other types of hallucinations as well. So as I had mentioned earlier on, our next session, we will have a geriatric psychology nurse coming in to speak, and she's actually going to speak a lot about some of these challenging, the behaviors that challenge us, or as we refer to it, expressions of feelings that people living with dementia may have. With middle stage dementia, we will also see the physical abilities start to be changing from the early stage. So we may see assistance required for activities of daily living. And again, it's often not all of the activities of daily living, but for sure some of them. We'll see changes in sleep and wake patterns and spatial problems that can affect movement and coordination. So if you think of all of those things I've just talked about, the physical, the mood, the cognitive, I have a question for all of you. And again, please go ahead and answer on the poll. My question is, if all of those things, or even some of those things, were happening to you, how would you feel? How would you feel if you had those cognitive abilities? So I will post the poll. So if you feel you would be frightened or scared, choose A. B, angry, frustrated. C, sad or depressed. D, potentially all of the above. And E, none of the above. I'll give everybody a few seconds just to add those in. And you can see what everybody is feeling there. So many people felt that all of the above would be how they would potentially feel with that happening. I'm going to read to you now a quick excerpt from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And again, I just want you to think about using the same scoring, how you would feel. You have always been fit and active. You have had a rewarding family and social life and a job that you enjoyed. However, some time ago you started to find it increasingly difficult to manage your day-to-day life. You became increasingly forgetful, confused, and disoriented. People at work became exasperated with your apparent incompetence. Your partner was very concerned about you and suggested that you visit your GP. The GP referred you to a consultant, and following lengthy tests, he diagnosed Alzheimer's disease. As the illness has progressed, you have experienced short-term memory loss, problems with recognition, and increasing confusion and perceptual problems, which at times have made you anxious and agitated. You have now had to give up your job and your car. You don't always recognize your partner, family, or friends. You find it difficult to remember details of recent events. Hobbies and interests that you previously found rewarding are now difficult or impossible to do. Everyone around you seems to have a different opinion about what is happening. So again, using that as an example, how would you feel using the same pulling that we have listed there? Would you feel frightened, angry, sad, all of the above, or none of the above? Perfect. So again, many people felt that it would be all of the above. And the reason we do this example or this exercise is to help give you a sample of what it might be like to live with dementia. We will never really know unless we have dementia. But again, what would it be like? I'm now going to read another quick excerpt from Christine Bryden's second book, Dancing with Dementia. And this is her take on what it feels like for her to be a person who's living with dementia. We face a daily struggle to cope. Each day is filled with a myriad of activities which become more and more difficult as time goes by. Each task seems bigger and more overwhelming, so that we lose the interconnectedness of our thread of life. Life has become a fragmented kaleidoscope of problems as we juggle an enormous pile of difficult tasks. We feel as if we are hanging onto a high cliff above a lurking black hole. Daily tasks are complex. Nothing is automatic anymore. Everything is as if we are first learning. Cooking burns, ironing is forgotten, washing is no longer sorted, and driving becomes scary. You tell us that we have asked you that question, but we have no recollection. It is just a blank for the past, and this feels strange and scary, and yet you are frustrated with us. If we had an arm or a leg missing, you would congratulate us on our efforts. But you cannot see how much of our brain is missing and how hard it is to cope. So you don't understand our struggles. For me, it's like struggling to live in a fog, especially without Aricept. Everything is confusing and the struggle is exhausting to the point of extreme tiredness. We ebb and flow like a parallel universe of untreated and treated dementia. We have our good days and our bad days. As my friend Morris from Dasney said, there are windows of clarity which we must take advantage of. But unpredictably, we can feel exhausted, confused, muddle-headed. Life seems too difficult, and we retreat. So again, that was written by a person living with dementia. So we know we can't change the symptoms, but the emotions and feelings we can help with. So the next session, or section of this presentation, we want to take a look at you as a care partner. And we want you to know that in that drop box where you can find all the resources, there is an article called Don't Get Knocked Off Course by Change. And this is really about the journey from independence to dependence. It's a continuum that is constantly changing. So this is now the time we're going to look at care partner strengths and areas for development. I want to make sure everybody knows who is able to take part in the poll that we cannot see who votes for which answer. So we're going to go through these questions. There's actually 15 of the questions. Even though you're answering them on the poll, I would like you to try to keep track of them at your home as well and check which ones you're saying true or false to. Because once we get through all of the questions, it'll help you try to figure out which areas you may need to do some work on to help develop some of your strengths. So let's start with question number 1. I hesitate to ask for help for fear of being a burden or risk losing the help I do receive already. So is that a true statement for you or false? And we'll just give a few more seconds for other people to be able to answer. And I'll post. So you can see that it was, again, a large majority who felt that was true, not wanting to ask for more help because you don't want to risk losing the help you receive. Now, what about number 2? I shouldn't have to ask for help. People should see what I need and offer their help. Is this true or false for you? Again, we'll publish that. Not as big of a majority, but still there are people who still feel that they shouldn't have to ask and people should be able to see what is needed. The hard thing, and I know from being a person on the outside and not being the person who's that primary care partner, is often people don't know what to do to help. So unfortunately, trying to make that change would be a good thing because people might be able to. Let's move on to question 3. I rarely set limits because I feel guilty saying no. So I rarely set limits because I feel guilty saying no. Excellent. I'm really happy to see that was much more closer to 50-50. Again, as we know, as you go through this journey, that we do have to find a way to set some limits. Now, if we look at the 4th question, I feel like I'm letting people down and disappointing them. Again, is this true or false for you? Do you feel like you're letting people down and disappointing them? Again, for that poll, it was closer, 56% and 44%. And again, for the people on the phone, we recognize you can't poll. But again, I'm hoping that you're going along with us. So again, feeling like you're letting people down and disappointing them. Something, again, we should look at as this journey continues. Question number 5. I rarely express feelings such as anger or frustration because I don't want people to think less of me. Again, if you could answer true or false. I rarely express feelings such as anger or frustration because I don't want people to think less of me. Okay, and that one, again, for those people on the telephone, was about 56% was true and 44% was false. So again, still some feelings out there that, not able to show your true feeling because you feel people are judging you. Let's move on to number 6. Sorry, that should say no one, not no once. No one can care for my family member as well as I can. Is that true or false? So no one can care for my family member as well as I can. So again, for the people on the phone who are unable to see this, it was about, I think it was 33 and 67%. So a good number of people, 67%, felt that was false. So again, that's great that there's lots of people out there thinking someone else can care for them. I always think the key word in that question is care, because it's not that someone else can love your family member as well as you can, it's that they can actually provide that care. Number 7, providing care is entirely my responsibility. Again, is that true or false? Providing care is entirely my responsibility. Again, great to see that 90% of the people felt that that was false. Again, unfortunately, some people, if you're the only one around, it may look like it is your entire responsibility. But again, good to see that shift out there. Going to number 8, I should not have to go outside of the family for help. So again, is this true or false? You should not have to go outside of your family for help. And again, for people on the phone, just so you see kind of where the poll is sitting, 90% of the people felt that was a false statement, that you should not have to go outside of the family for help. And again, that's really great for all of the staff who are joining in on this webinar tonight, for us to be able to see that, because in the past that has been a problem. So knowing that people are more willing to try is really a good sign for us. So we have a few more questions. Seeking help is a sign of failure. Is this true or false for you? Again, for the people who would not be able to see this if you're on the telephone only, again, 9 respondents showed that that would be a false statement. So again, the large majority saying that seeking help really is not a sign of failure. Moving to question 10. It's selfish to enjoy myself when my family member is ill. So it is selfish to enjoy myself when my family member is ill. Is this true for you or false? Again, sitting right about that 82% and 18%. So only 18% felt that you shouldn't enjoy yourself, or they couldn't enjoy themselves while their family member is ill. And again, it's great to see from a staff's perspective that family members are finding ways to find some joy in their life while they're still caring for someone who's living with dementia. Moving to number 11, the person I am caring for can't get along without me. So is this true or false for you? The person I am caring for can't get along without me. And again, about 36% felt that may be true, and a larger percentage felt that was false for them. And again, really important to know, this is just helping us figure out where our strengths are and where there's some areas we can develop to develop some different strengths. Question number 12. The person I am caring for would never accept help from anyone other than me or family. So is that true or false? The person I am caring for would never accept help from anyone other than me or my family. So once again, for the people on the phones, about 25% felt that that would be true, and about 75% felt that would be a false statement. The last three, I promise. It would never work to use a community service. Is this a true statement for you or false? It would never work to use a community service. And those numbers, 22% felt that would be true, and I think it was 78, a much larger percentage felt that would be false. Moving on to 14, I shouldn't spend money on a service that I can do myself. So is that a true statement or a false statement for you? I shouldn't spend money on a service that I can do myself. So again, looking at those numbers, about 25% felt that that was a true statement, and 75% felt that that might not be as true for them. And the last question, I could never have a stranger in my home. Is that a true statement for you or a false? I could never have a stranger in my home. So looking at the numbers then, and I'm hoping I'm not going too fast, please feel free to give us some feedback if I am. I could never have a stranger in my home, 10%, and 90% felt that was false. So again, the goal of doing this activity, and please feel free to download it from that Dropbox that Ashley had provided the link to, and you can do that kind of throughout your journey just to do a quick check-in. But the goal would be to have none of these checked as true, or very few. So again, for those of you on the phone, if you were keeping track, just kind of take a look. The higher the number is of truths that you checked, then that kind of shows you the areas that we could do some work in to help develop that. And it'll help us understand changes that you may want to consider as you continue through this journey. We know that it is difficult for care partners to speak up and ask for help or use community services as a resource. However, from experience, we know that these things are vital to your success in your journey as a care partner. So again, just trying to figure out where your areas where you could do some work on it to make that stronger. Now I'm hoping everybody has a pencil and pen in front of them. The next slide I'm going to show you, I would really like if you could draw the same 3 circles. So one circle in the middle, a small one, another one farther outside, and then a larger one encompassing those other 2 circles. So I'll give you a chance, everybody, a chance to write that down. What I want you to do with these circles, in the very inner circle, so that's the circle, the smallest circle, I want you to write your name into that middle circle. Using the outside circles, depending how close they are to you in real life, I want you to put names of specific people, groups, or agencies that are part of your support system. So for me, if I was going to put my sister, I would put her close to my name that's in the middle of the circle, whereas for someone else, I might put them more on that outside area. So I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes, to fill out and identify who is in your support system. I'm going to put my speaker on mute so that you don't have to hear me drinking water. So go ahead and take a couple minutes, everybody. So again, hoping everyone's having a chance to write some names down. And again, just a reminder, specific people, groups, or agencies that are part of your support system. If you could put those around your name. For people on the telephone, I just want to clarify that you do have a small circle, a circle a little farther away, and then even a larger circle. Your name goes in the middle, and then just drop in other people's names as to how close they are in your real life. So I'm hoping, while you're still working on this, that a couple of you, or a few of you, or however many would be willing to, if you would share some of those names. Now, when I say that, I'm not looking for the word Linda, using my sister as an example. I would put sister. I'm hoping some people will type me some of their responses in that bottom right-hand box near the word send. So if some of you out there could type in some of your who's in your support system, that would be great. I'll give people a little bit of time. So we have spouse, friends, sister-in-laws, son, brother. So these are very, very typical results. I'm going to show you from, again, doing this in-house, some of the answers we tend to get. Again, great. Thanks, Dee. Spouse, brother, my loved one's partner. So we tend to see, depending who the person living with dementia is, we will have people mention siblings, their own children, grandchildren, a spouse, cousins, nieces, nephews, friends, neighbors, colleagues. Some people even feel their pet actually helps them with their support system. The Alzheimer's Society, Alberta Health Services, and private care services. So I want to talk just a little bit about the services at the Alzheimer's Society. pretty much wherever you reside, you should be able to receive most of these services. Again, depending the size of the area you live in will depend what some of the services are. In the larger areas, you will find that we have early stage support groups. We have care partner support groups. We have this program, Seeds of Hope Family Learning Series, and we also have a condensed version of these programs on Asante Cafe under our education series. We have information and support services, so again, welcoming families to telephone us, to email, to ask for face-to-face meetings, whether you're looking for information or support. We offer First Link connections or family visits. We also have resource libraries in all of our local offices. We have our Safely Home Wandering Registry program. We offer public forums or webinars like this here one, and we do presentations and displays. So again, those are some of the supports that the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories can provide you. With regards to Alberta Health Services, again, depending where you are in the province, but most places will be able to offer you through their home care or community care access program, you should be able to find respite in your home. So respite in your home is where someone can come in and relieve you as the care partner for a few hours a couple times a week. And I'm just using that as an example. So they may be able to provide you on every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 until 3 some time, those 2 hours for you to be able to go take a break. So again, respite is that break for you, the care partner. Now they also have day programs. Day programs is a different type of a respite program. A day program is where the person living with dementia goes out into the community to a day program. Now this is the program that not all areas will have. So again, smaller communities may not have a specialized dementia day program. They may not actually have day programs at all. So again, you'd want to check with your local home care or community care access team regarding what's available in your area. They can do assists. So an assist would be things such as bathing, dressing, grooming, helping with medication, or light meals. Alberta Health Services, again, through their home care and supportive living program, can help with respite in a facility. So again, this is where the person living with dementia can go into a facility for 4 days, 4 nights, 1 week, again, somewhat within what you require. And they care for your family members so that you can have a break. I hear lots of people often say things like, well, good, then I could go to so-and-so's wedding. We always suggest if you do have the opportunity to try it in advance first, because we want you to be able to enjoy that wedding that you're going to and not just simply be worried. But again, that's the type of program it's for. It gives you a break where the person living with dementia goes into the facility. And of course, Alberta Health Services will help with placement and the different levels of placement being supportive living, which they refer to as SL, supportive living, and then they number it 3 or 4, which tends to be the kind of the level that people with middle stage, even some of the late stage dementia will, that level of care they will need. Again, you'd want to check with Alberta Health Services. I want to quickly talk about those services now with a financial aspect. Respite in your home is a free service from Alberta Health Services at this point in time. Day programs, there is a charge. The charges vary depending which program and where you are, But again, I know in the Edmonton area, it ranges usually around the $20 mark per day. Those assists, whether it's dressing, grooming, coming in to do a light meal, again, that is a free program. Respite in a facility, financially, again, it depends if you're in a private room or a shared room. But again, generally, you're probably looking between $50 to $65. But again, check with your home care in your area. And then placement, this number kind of is always on a floating scale. It is depending which building, who owns that building. But I always just say to families, you need to think about around the $2,000 amount per month. And plus there has to be leftover funds to help with things like haircuts, new clothing, pillows, things like that. Again, those are approximate numbers just to give you an idea of the costs of those. And as I said, all of the programs, though, are funded by Alberta Health. Now, a quick comments about private care services. There are lots of private care services, again, and I use the word lots coming from Edmonton. Depending where you are in the province, there may not be as many as there are in larger cities. So what I want you to think about, though, with private care is what sort of services do you need? Because everything that we've listed above that Alberta Health Services does, except probably with the opportunity of placement, depending the level of care, you can purchase a lot of those services in a private system. With a private system, though, it is a buyer beware. So our offices will not really be able to tell you which is the best private service, but we may have a list. So if you are interested in looking to private care services, check with your local Alzheimer's Society office, and they may be able to provide you a list, or people that have used some of the programs or some of those services from private care. Again, here's where I would really encourage you to share that equation we looked at from Dr. Thomas Kitwood, because you really want to give people coming in who are going to help you care for your family member as much information about them as you can. And that leads to another question, and it is an activity. So I will show the next screen, but again, for anybody who may be on the phone, really what I want you to do is just split your page in half with a pen line or a pencil line. And on one side of the line is the word or the words, "This is what I could use help with." And on the other side of the line, "This is who I could ask for help." So again, if I could get everyone just to take a couple seconds, half a minute, and just write one or two things down that you could actually use help with right now. Remember, these are always changing depending where you are in the journey, but just for you, write some things down, what you could use help with. And then again, a couple, half a minute, who could you ask for help? Look at your support circle and think about who could do that. We don't always have to go back to the same person. Sometimes we could ask our neighbor to sit with your spouse while you run for groceries, but maybe you could ask an adult son to come and stay for an afternoon. Again, depending what type of help you're looking for. This here document can also be downloaded at that link that Ashley gave you. We do know, and family members tell us this all the time, that it is hard to ask for help. But all of those people in your support circle, they do want to help you depending what that help looks like. So everybody cannot do everything. But again, there's often something they can help with. So Hopefully you find this helpful. We families have reported to us by simply writing things down that they could use help with. It was easier to engage with their family members, friends, even organizations as to what would actually help them do it. So we'll be moving on to the next slide, but always think about this little activity and the fact that you can take it out and use it in an ongoing sense so that you can keep in line with what's coming up and who could you use to help. The last part of this presentation, we really want to look at, again, family and friends as a source of support. The information on this and the next couple slides comes from the Savvy Caregiver Program and the Alzheimer's Sourcebook for Caregivers by Frina Gray Davidson. So there's different models of family caregiving, and you may find that you're in one type of model and you'd really like to be able to move to the other. And we will talk about what some of the barriers are and some of the ways to make it work. But basically, what the Savvy Caregiver Program looked at was 5 models. The first model is solitary caregiving. This is where one family member is responsible and others are not involved at all. There's many reasons why people are not involved, and that we're not really going to discuss at this point, but really just that there is solitary caregiving out there where one family member is responsible. A second type of a caregiving model is observed caregiving. So again, this is where one family member is responsible and others voice their opinions. I'm sure everyone can imagine the challenges with that, where the one family member's doing, and you may be one of these people, where you are the main person responsible and others simply voice their opinions to you. The third type of family caregiving model is called tag team. So this is where you just rotate solitary caregiving. It's hard to maintain that continuity. And it works for a while, and that's great, but again, really hard to maintain. So I know a lot of family members will use this if, say, if I'm caregiving for my mother and my sister is coming to town for a week or two, then we will tag team it. So I'll be that solitary person, and then, you know, in the afternoon when my sister comes and I leave, she will be. So it's rotating. The important thing to remember, though, hard to maintain that continuity. The fourth model, uneasy alliance. This is where you have multiple care partners with different goals and styles. Again, you can see the challenges with that uneasy alliance, where you have multiple care partners looking at those different goals and styles. And of course, the last one, which is the fifth one, the fifth model is called collaborative. And this is where families are working together. And so some of you may have no other choice than to be using the solitary caregiving model. But for anybody else in numbers 2, 3, and 4, again, if you ever feel like any of the staff at the Alzheimer's Society might be able to help you with this, to move to that collaborative, please don't hesitate to call any of our local offices with that. So again, take a look at that type of model you may be. When we move to the next slide, you will see some barriers to effective family caregiving. So some of the barriers are denial. We know that we hear often, you know, sometimes siblings don't see the disease process the same as maybe the primary care partner, or they may just differ with equal care partners. There could be anger, despair, blame, avoidance, lack of that role flexibility, so just not really understanding the role, and lack of experience, not really understanding what is needed for someone with middle stage dementia. So if we know the barriers, there's also ways to break those barriers. And breaking the barriers, we know we can do this with knowledge and skill. And again, the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories is here to assist you in that area. To have a plan also helps break the barriers. And communication, having a family meeting or meetings if they work and you're going, some families plan these, twice a year. And I'm not referring to ones in care facilities. I'm actually talking about where families just simply meet to talk about if they're still on the same page, if everyone agrees to the next steps. And any of these three, breaking the barriers, if you feel the Alzheimer's Society office may be able to help you, please do not hesitate to give us a call. We also have a couple other documents to look at in that downloadable area where Ashley had posted the link. And the two documents there are called Caregiving and Sibling Relationships, Challenges and Opportunities, and Family Dynamics and Caregiving. So for this evening, our goal was really to give you some basic information about what happens with people with middle stage dementia, to let you see where your strengths, some of your areas for development could be as a care partner, to look at understanding the model of caregiving you're in and breaking the barriers. So it was really to give everyone what I like to kind of refer to as a basic information structure. When we listed the time on our flyer, we were just using the same times that we used in-house. Obviously, in-house, when you're face-to-face, there's a chance for lots of questions. So I do want to ask people if they have any questions on any of the information that we've covered this evening. Before I do that, though, I do want to go to my second last slide, which is questions for reflection. So after this presentation is done this evening, and for the other 4 remaining sessions that we will do in it, I want you, if you have the time, again, this is not homework. We do not want to add any extra work to you, but we do know that sometimes reflecting on our own situation can actually help develop some strength as well. So I would ask, what characteristics do you have that will be an asset in your role as a care partner? Because we all come to this role with characteristics. And what characteristics do you need to develop or work on? How do you feel about using support services? Really take a deep look inside and see, is it, I always like to think to families, is it a problem that you're imagining or is it an actual problem? Because sometimes we build problems when they're not necessarily there. Number 3, what supports, whether it's professional service and or family and friends, do you plan to use in the next 6 months for the well-being of you and your family member with dementia? And list some supports, again, professional services and or family and friends, that you plan on using in the future to help you and your family member with dementia over the long term as the illness progresses. So again, these are not to be done at this point in time. You can do them after we're done. Before I move on to the very last slide, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to start typing them in the box on the right-hand corner beside the word send. The last slide I will leave you with is just to let you know that next Monday, starting at 6 p.m., we will have the geriatric psych nurse come in and speak about those behaviors that challenge us, or as we like to call it, expressions of feelings that people living with middle stage dementia may have. So she will talk about hallucinations, delusions, wandering, repetitive questions, and then she will also answer all of your questions. So that's what we have. But before we close up, if anybody does have any questions this evening, please feel free to type them in. And myself, and I see I have a few colleagues who are on the webinar this evening, we will do our best to answer your questions. I always feel like I should hum the do 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 just to give everyone time. If there are no if there are no questions on this evening, again, just a reminder that you can go to the Dropbox that Ashley had listed earlier on, and it is listed in this document. And you can go in there and print all of the information that I've referred to, the slide presentation, all of that is in there for you to print. Other than that, I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening to get that really good rounded basis so that when we move on with all of our other speakers, they don't have to talk about, what are those common signs and symptoms in middle stages, that we'll be able to really just focus on the area of specialty they have. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It's our pleasure to be able to pilot the middle stage Living with Change Seeds of Hope program for you. And we hope to see everybody next week for the geriatric psych nurse. Again, we'll be starting at 6 p.m. And we will be looking at getting a bit of a better mic so that we make sure that everybody can hear us clearly. So thank you, everyone.
You are currently the only person in this conference.